The alarm clock buzzed at 5:30 a.m., but Lisa Rodriguez was already awake. She had been lying in bed for the past hour, staring at the ceiling with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Today was the day she had been counting down to for months. Her son Danny was graduating from high school, and after 15 years of military service that had taken her to every corner of the world, she would finally be there for one of the biggest moments in his life. She rolled out of bed and walked to the small dresser in her temporary apartment. The dress blue uniform hung there, perfectly pressed and ready. Each ribbon and medal told a story of sacrifice, dedication, and service to her country. The Good Conduct Medal, the Afghanistan Campaign Medal, the Combat Action Ribbon, they weren't just decorations to her. They represented countless nights away from home, missed birthdays, and video calls that replaced bedtime stories. Lisa had joined the Marines right after high school herself. She was just 18, scared, but determined to serve her country and build a better life for herself. Back then, she never imagined she would one day be a single mother trying to balance military duty with raising a child. Danny's father had left when he was just 3 years old, unable to handle the deployments and the uncertainty that came with military life. Over the years, Lisa's mother had been Danny's rock. Grandma Helen had picked him up from school when Lisa was deployed, attended his parent-teacher conferences, and been there for every scraped knee and broken heart. But today was different. Today, Lisa would be the one sitting in that audience, watching her boy walk across that stage. She put on her uniform with the same care she had every day for the past 15 years. Each button, each crease had to be perfect. It wasn't just about military standards anymore. This was about showing Danny that all those years of sacrifice had been worth it. She wanted him to see her not just as his mother, but as a woman who had served her country with honor. The drive to the high school took 20 minutes, but Lisa arrived an hour early. She wanted to soak in every moment of this day. The parking lot was already filling up with families. Parents were arriving with flowers, balloons, and cameras. Everyone looked so excited, so proud. Lisa felt a pang of guilt thinking about all the events she had missed over the years. Soccer games, school plays, award ceremonies. But Danny had always understood. Even as a little boy, he would tell his friends that his mom was a hero who protected people. She walked into the school building, her military bearing evident in every step. The hallways were decorated with banners congratulating the graduating class. Photos of the seniors lined the walls, and Lisa stopped when she found Danny's picture. He was smiling that same crooked grin he had given her since he was a toddler. In the photo, he looked so grown up, so mature. Where had the time gone? "Excuse me, are you Danny Rodriguez's mother?" a woman asked behind her. Lisa turned to see a teacher approaching. "Yes, I am. You must be Mrs. Patterson, his English teacher. Danny has told me so much about you." Mrs. Patterson's face lit up. "Oh my goodness, it's such an honor to meet you. Danny talks about you all the time. He's so proud of your service." "We all are. Thank you for everything you've done for our country." Lisa felt her chest swell with pride. "Thank you. That means more to me than you know. How has Danny been doing?" "I know this last semester was tough with college applications and everything. He's been wonderful, one of my best students. He wrote his college essay about you, about what it means to have a mother who serves." There wasn't a dry eye in the room when he read it aloud. Lisa felt tears welling up in her eyes. She had always worried that her military career had somehow shortchanged Danny, that he resented the time she had spent away. But hearing this from his teacher made her realize that maybe, just maybe, she had given him something valuable too. A sense of duty, pride, and service to others. The auditorium was massive, with hundreds of red chairs arranged in neat rows. A stage at the front was decorated with the school colors and balloons. Lisa found a seat in the middle section, not too close to seem overeager, but close enough to get good photos. She pulled out her phone and started recording a video message. "Hey Danny, it's Mom. I'm sitting here in the auditorium waiting for your graduation to start, and I just want you to know how proud I am of you. I know I haven't been able to be there for everything over the years, but I'm here now, and I wouldn't miss this for the world." Around her, other families were doing the same thing, taking photos, adjusting flowers, chatting excitedly about their graduates. Lisa overheard conversations about college plans, summer jobs, and graduation parties. It was such a normal, beautiful scene. She felt grateful to be part of it. She thought back to her own high school graduation. Her parents had been there, but she remembered feeling so eager to leave, to start her adult life, to see the world. She had no idea then what that would actually mean, the challenges, the loneliness, the weight of responsibility that came with military service. If she could go back and tell her 18-year-old self anything, it would be to appreciate those quiet moments at home a little more. The gymnasium began to fill up quickly. Grandparents with walkers made their way slowly to their seats. Younger siblings ran up and down the aisles until their parents corralled them. Everyone was dressed in their Sunday best: suits, dresses, nice shoes. Lisa looked down at her own uniform and felt a moment of self-consciousness. Was she overdressed? Would she stand out too much? But then she remembered why she had chosen to wear it. This uniform represented everything she had worked for, everything she had sacrificed. It was part of who she was, and she wanted Danny to see her exactly as she was, a proud Marine, a dedicated mother, and a woman who had served her country with honor. The graduates began filing in from a side entrance, and Lisa's heart skipped a beat when she spotted Danny in the sea of blue caps and gowns. He looked so handsome, so grown up. She waved at him, and when he saw her, his face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen. He mouthed, "I love you," across the room, and Lisa had to dab at her eyes with a tissue. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for. After all the deployments, all the missed moments, all the sacrifices, she was finally here for one of the most important days of her son's life. She settled back in her chair, her phone ready to capture every second, her heart full of pride and love. The principal stepped up to the microphone to begin the ceremony, and Lisa felt a sense of peace wash over her. She was exactly where she belonged, wearing the uniform that represented 15 years of service, watching her son prepare to start his own journey into adulthood. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever sacrifices she had made along the way, this moment made it all worthwhile. The principal had just stepped up to the podium when Lisa noticed two men walking down the aisle toward her section. They were wearing dark suits and had small badges clipped to their jackets. Security guards. At first, she didn't think much of it. Maybe they were just doing their rounds, making sure everything was running smoothly for the big day. But then they stopped right next to her row. "Excuse me, ma'am," the taller one said, leaning down slightly. His voice was polite but firm. "We need to speak with you for a moment." Lisa looked up, confused. Around her, other parents were settling into their seats, adjusting their cameras, and whispering excitedly to each other. The ceremony was about to begin. "I'm sorry, is there a problem?" she asked. The second guard, a shorter man with graying hair, glanced around nervously before speaking. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to move to a different section." "Move?" Lisa felt her stomach drop. "I don't understand. Is there something wrong with my seat?" The first guard looked uncomfortable. He kept glancing at her uniform, then at the families around them. "Well, ma'am, it's about your outfit." Lisa looked down at her dress blues, then back up at the guards. "My uniform? What about it?" "Look, ma'am, we don't want to cause any trouble," the shorter guard said, his voice getting a bit louder. "But some of the other parents have expressed concern about your military uniform. They feel it might be inappropriate for a school event." The words hit Lisa like a punch to the gut. Inappropriate? She had worn this uniform with pride to military ceremonies, to honor fallen soldiers, to represent her country around the world. How could it be inappropriate at her own son's graduation? "I'm sorry, but I don't understand," Lisa said, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is my dress uniform. I'm here to watch my son graduate." The taller guard shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, we understand that, but in today's climate, some families find military displays unsettling. We've had complaints that it might make people think about war, about loss. Some parents here have lost family members in recent conflicts." Lisa felt her face flush. She looked around and noticed that a few parents in nearby rows were indeed staring at her. Some were whispering to each other, glancing in her direction. She felt exposed, judged, like she was suddenly under a spotlight she never asked for. "Sir, I understand people have different feelings about the military," Lisa said, her voice quiet but firm. "But I'm not here to make any kind of statement. I'm here as a mother, watching my son graduate. This uniform is part of who I am." The shorter guard sighed. "Ma'am, we're not trying to be difficult, but we need to keep everyone comfortable. There are seats available in the back section. You'd still be able to see everything, but you'd be less visible." Less visible. The words stung. Lisa had spent 15 years serving her country, and now she was being asked to hide in the back like she was something to be ashamed of. She thought about all the time she had worn this uniform at memorial services for fallen soldiers, at ceremonies honoring veterans, at events celebrating the sacrifices of military families. Never once had she felt like she needed to hide. "I don't want to cause any problems," Lisa said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I bought this seat just like everyone else. I have every right to be here." The conversation was getting attention now. More parents were turning to look. Lisa could hear whispers spreading through the section. "Is that a soldier? What's going on over there? Should we be worried?" The taller guard's patience was wearing thin. "Ma'am, we're trying to be reasonable here. We're not asking you to leave. We're just asking you to move to a less prominent location." "Because of my uniform," Lisa said. It wasn't a question. "Because some people find it disturbing," the guard replied. "Look, we appreciate your service, we really do. But this is a school event, not a military ceremony." Lisa felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she fought them back. Her son was sitting with the other graduates, probably wondering what was happening. She didn't want to ruin his special day, but she also couldn't understand how her uniform, the same uniform she wore to protect the freedoms that allowed this graduation ceremony to happen, could be seen as a problem. "What if I refuse to move?" she asked quietly. The guards exchanged glances. "Ma'am, we really don't want it to come to that," the shorter one said. "But if you're disruptive, we'll have to call the police." The police. Lisa's mind raced. She imagined being escorted out of her son's graduation, the humiliation, the embarrassment for Danny, but she also thought about all the young men and women she had served with, some of whom had given their lives for their country. What would they think? If she backed down now? Around her, the whispers were getting louder. She could feel dozens of eyes on her. Some parents had moved their chairs slightly away from her section. Others were pointing discreetly and talking to their spouses. Lisa felt completely alone in a room full of hundreds of people. "I served 3 tours in Afghanistan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been away from my son for months at a time, protecting the freedoms that allow us to have ceremonies like this. I've missed birthdays, holidays, school plays. I've sacrificed more than you can imagine. And now you want me to hide in the back because my uniform makes people uncomfortable?" The guards looked genuinely sorry, but they weren't backing down. "Ma'am, we understand your sacrifice, and we respect it. But we have to think about all the families here today." "What about my family?" Lisa asked. "What about my son? He's proud of my service. He tells everyone his mom is a Marine. Are you going to make him ashamed of me too? The question hung in the air. The guards didn't have an answer. They just stood there, waiting for her to comply with their request. Lisa looked across the auditorium at Danny. He was watching the whole thing unfold, his face a mixture of confusion and concern. She could see him saying something to the graduate next to him, probably trying to figure out what was happening. This was supposed to be his day, his moment to shine, and instead he was watching his mother being singled out and humiliated. She made her decision. "I'm not moving," she said, her voice stronger now. "I earned my right to be here just like everyone else. I'm staying in my seat." The guards looked at each other again, clearly not expecting this response. The shorter one pulled out his radio. "We might need backup," he said quietly into the device. Lisa felt her heart pounding, but she sat up straighter in her chair. She wasn't going to let them intimidate her. She had faced down enemy fire in Afghanistan. She wasn't going to be scared. Away by 2 security guards at her son's graduation, the ceremony was about to begin. But instead of celebrating, Lisa was preparing for a fight she never wanted to have. Lisa gripped the sides of her chair and took a deep breath. The radio crackled as the guard spoke into it, and she could hear other parents murmuring around her. Some were pulling out their phones, probably wondering if they should record what was happening. Others were clearly uncomfortable, shifting in their seats and avoiding eye contact. "Ma'am, I really need you to reconsider," the taller guard said, his voice getting more serious. "We don't want to make this a bigger issue than it needs to be." Lisa looked up at him, her brown eyes steady despite the storm of emotions inside. "Sir, with all due respect, I'm not the one making this an issue. I'm sitting in my seat, waiting for my son to graduate. That's all I'm doing." The shorter guard stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Look, lady, we get it. You served your country, that's great. But right now, you're causing a disturbance. People are staring. Kids are asking their parents questions. Just move to the back and everyone can enjoy the ceremony." "I'm not causing anything," Lisa replied, her voice calm but firm. "I'm sitting here quietly, just like everyone else. If people are staring, that's their choice. I can't control what other people do." She could feel her heart racing, but years of military training had taught her to stay composed under pressure. She thought about her drill instructor back in basic training, a tough woman who had taught her that sometimes you had to stand up for what was right. Even when it was hard. Around her, the situation was definitely getting more attention. A woman 3 rows back was whispering urgently to her husband, occasionally glancing over at Lisa. A young couple to her left had their phones out, clearly recording the whole thing. Lisa hated being the center of attention like this, but she wasn't going to back down. "Ma'am," the first guard said, his patience clearly running out, "if you don't move voluntarily, we're going to have to escort you out." "For what?" Lisa asked. "What exactly am I doing wrong? Am I being loud? Am I bothering anyone? I'm sitting here in my dress uniform, the same uniform I wore when I took an oath to defend this country and its Constitution. The same Constitution that protects everyone's right to be here today." The guard didn't have an answer for that. He looked frustrated, like he knew she was right, but felt stuck following orders from someone higher up. Lisa's mind wandered for a moment to her fellow Marines, the ones who didn't make it home. She thought about Rodriguez, a young man from Texas who had been killed by a roadside bomb just 2 weeks before his own son was born. She thought about Williams, a tough woman from Chicago who had saved 3 lives before losing her own in a firefight. What would they think if they could see her now, being asked to hide her uniform because it made people uncomfortable? "I've been shot at," Lisa said quietly, more to herself than to the guards. "I've held dying soldiers in my arms. I've seen things that would give most people nightmares for the rest of their lives. And I did it all wearing this uniform, protecting the freedom that allows us to have graduations like this one. The taller guard heard her. Ma'am, we're not questioning your service. Aren't you? Lisa interrupted, looking directly at him. Because that's exactly what this feels like. It feels like you're telling me that my service, my sacrifice, my uniform is something to be ashamed of, something to hide. More parents were getting involved now. A middle-aged man in a blue suit leaned over to his wife and said something that made her nod seriously. They both looked over at Lisa, but their expressions weren't unfriendly. They looked more curious than upset. An elderly woman sitting across the aisle caught Lisa's eye and gave her a small, encouraging nod. She was wearing a small pin on her dress that Lisa recognized, a gold star pin, indicating she had lost a family member in military service. The woman's support meant everything to Lisa in that moment. You know what the really sad part is? Lisa said, her voice getting stronger. My son is proud of me. He tells everyone his mom is a Marine. He's never been ashamed of my uniform or my service. But you're trying to make me ashamed of it. The shorter guard looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, it's not about shame. It's about being considerate of others. Considerate? Lisa stood up slowly, her military bearing evident. She wasn't tall, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had earned her place in the world. Let me tell you what considerate looks like. Considerate is leaving your family for months at a time to serve your country. Considerate is missing your child's birthday because you're protecting other people's children. Considerate is putting your life on the line so that families like these can gather safely for graduations. People were definitely listening now. The murmurs around the auditorium had quieted as parents strained to hear what was being said. Lisa could see Danny from her position, and he was watching intently, his face a mixture of worry and pride. Ma'am, you need to lower your voice, the first guard warned. Why? Lisa asked. Because I'm speaking the truth? Because I'm standing up for myself? I've been polite. I've been respectful, but I will not be bullied into hiding who I am. A man sitting 2 rows behind Lisa suddenly spoke up. Excuse me, what exactly is the problem here? He was an older gentleman with gray hair and kind eyes. This woman is just sitting here. What's the issue? The guards looked flustered. They weren't used to having other parents get involved. Sir, this doesn't concern you, the shorter guard said. Actually, it does, the man replied, standing up. We're all here for the same reason, to celebrate our kids. If you're harassing this woman because of her military uniform, then yes, it concerns me. Lisa felt a surge of gratitude toward this stranger who was willing to speak up for her. She could see his point resonating with other parents too. A few more people were starting to pay attention, and not all of them looked disapproving. I'm not trying to cause problems, Lisa said, addressing the broader group now. I just want to watch my son graduate. I've served this country for 15 years. I've missed so many important moments in my son's life because of my duty. Today, I'm here as his mother, wearing the uniform that represents everything I've sacrificed for him and for all of you. Her voice carried across the section, and she could see people nodding. A woman in the front row turned around and smiled at her. Another parent gave her a thumbs up. The guards were losing control of the situation, and they knew it. More parents were getting involved, more people were asking questions, and Lisa was gaining support instead of being isolated. Ma'am, the taller guard said, his voice showing his frustration. Final warning. Move to the back section, or we call the police. Lisa looked around at the faces watching her. Some were supportive, some were curious, and yes, some still looked uncomfortable. But she wasn't going to let fear make her decision. Then call them, she said simply. Because I'm not moving. The tension in the auditorium was thick enough to cut with a knife. Lisa stood there, her chin raised, waiting for the guards to make their next move. The shorter guard was already reaching for his radio when something unexpected happened. A man, in a dark gray suit, sitting about 4 rows behind Lisa, slowly stood up. He was tall, probably in his 40s, with short cropped hair and the kind of posture that immediately caught your attention. There was something about the way he carried himself, confident, alert, ready. Lisa noticed him first, then the guards, then other parents started turning to look. The man didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, his eyes locked on the scene unfolding in front of him. Then, like dominoes falling, another man stood up. This one was younger, maybe in his 30s, wearing a navy blue suit. He was sitting in a completely different section, but he rose from his seat with the same deliberate, measured movement. Lisa's heart skipped a beat. She recognized something in their bearing, something familiar that made her pulse quicken with hope. A third man stood up. Then a fourth. Then a fifth. All around the auditorium, men in civilian clothes were rising from their seats. They weren't sitting together. They were scattered throughout the crowd, each there with their own families. But something was connecting them, some invisible thread that Lisa was beginning to understand. The guards looked confused. The first one still had his radio in his hand, but he seemed frozen, unsure of what was happening. Parents throughout the auditorium were twisting in their seats, trying to figure out why all these men were standing up. By now, 12 men were on their feet. 12 men who moved with purpose, who carried themselves with unmistakable military bearing even in their civilian clothes. The first man who had stood up began walking down the aisle toward Lisa's section. As he got closer, Lisa could see the small pin on his lapel, a trident pin that made her breath catch in her throat. Navy SEAL. He stopped next to her row and spoke quietly, but his voice carried enough that people nearby could hear. "Ma'am, I'm Chief Petty Officer Wilson. These gentlemen and I couldn't help but notice what's happening here." Lisa felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Chief," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The other men were moving now too, walking from their scattered seats throughout the auditorium. They moved with the same purposeful stride, converging on Lisa's section like a unit that had trained together for years. The second man to reach her was younger, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Senior Chief Martinez," he introduced himself. Quietly, "My daughter's graduating today too." One by one, they introduced themselves. Chief Johnson, whose son was in the graduating class. Lieutenant Commander Thompson, there for his nephew. Senior Chief Davis, proud father of a graduate. Petty Officer First Class Anderson, whose stepdaughter was receiving her diploma. They were all Navy SEALs, all in different stages of their careers, all there for their own family members. But they had witnessed what was happening to Lisa, and they couldn't stand by and watch a fellow service member be disrespected. "Ma'am," Chief Wilson said, his voice respectful but firm, "would you mind if we sat with you?" Lisa couldn't speak. She just nodded, overwhelmed by the show of support from these warriors who didn't even know her name. The guards were speechless. They had been dealing with one woman in a military uniform, which they thought they could handle. Now they were facing 30 military personnel, including some of the most elite soldiers in the world. The SEALs arranged themselves around Lisa's section. Some sat in empty seats nearby, others stood at the ends of rows. They weren't aggressive or threatening. They were simply present, creating a protective circle around a fellow veteran who was being treated unfairly. Chief Wilson turned to the guards, his voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. "Gentlemen, is there a problem here?" The taller guard looked flustered. "Sir, we were just asking the lady to move to a different section. There have been complaints about her uniform." "Complaints?" Chief Martinez stepped forward. "What kind of complaints?" Some parents felt that military uniforms might be inappropriate for a school function, the shorter guard explained, his voice getting smaller by the minute. The SEALs exchanged glances. Chief Johnson, a man who looked like he could bench press a car, spoke up. Inappropriate? This woman's uniform represents 15 years of service to our country. How exactly is that inappropriate? By now, the entire auditorium was watching. The ceremony hadn't started yet, and everyone was trying to figure out what was happening. Parents were whispering to each other, pointing at the group of men surrounding. Lisa, an older woman, sitting near the front, called out, "What's going on back there?" Chief Wilson turned to address the crowd. "Ma'am, this is Staff Sergeant Rodriguez. She's here to watch her son graduate, just like all of you. She's being asked to move because some people are uncomfortable with her military uniform." A murmur went through the crowd. Lisa could hear people saying things like, "That's ridiculous, and she has every right to be here." Senior Chief Davis, a man with graying temples and laugh lines around his eyes, looked at the guards. "Gentlemen, let me ask you something. Do you see these uniforms as inappropriate?" He gestured to himself and his fellow SEALs. "You're not wearing uniforms," the first guard pointed out. "No, we're not," Davis agreed. "We're in civilian clothes because we're off duty, here with our families. But we're all active duty military. Are we inappropriate too? Should we be moved to the back?" The guards didn't know what to say. They were clearly out of their depth. Chief Wilson continued, "This woman has served 3 tours in Afghanistan. She's been shot at while protecting the freedoms that allow us to have ceremonies like this. She's missed birthdays, holidays, and countless moments with her son because she was serving our country. And now you want her to hide in the back because her uniform makes people uncomfortable?" The crowd was definitely on Lisa's side now. She could hear people calling out support. "Let her stay." Someone shouted, "She earned her right to be here." A man in the middle section stood up. "My father was in Vietnam. He would be disgusted by this." He started clapping, and others joined in. The applause spread through the auditorium like wildfire. Parents were standing up, clapping, showing their support for Lisa and her right to be there in her uniform. The guards looked at each other, realizing they had lost complete control of the situation. What had started as a simple request to move one woman had turned into a full auditorium of people supporting her. Lisa stood there, surrounded by 12 of America's finest warriors, listening to hundreds of parents applaud her service. She thought about all the time she had felt alone, all the sacrifices she had made, all the moments she had questioned whether it was worth it. This moment made it all worth it. Chief Wilson put his hand on her shoulder. "Ma'am, would you do us the honor of letting us escort you to your seat?" Lisa smiled through her tears. "Chief, I'm already in my seat. I'm not going anywhere." The SEALs took their positions around her, some sitting, some standing, all of them making it clear that they weren't going anywhere either. The guards finally got the message. They were outnumbered, outranked, and completely outclassed. The applause was still echoing through the auditorium when Principal Jackson appeared at the side of the stage. He was a tall, thin man with kind eyes who had been running the school for over 20 years. He had heard the commotion from backstage and came out to see what was happening. When he saw the scene, Lisa surrounded by 12 SEALs, the guards looking completely lost, and hundreds of parents on their feet applauding, his face went pale. He immediately walked over to where the guards were standing. "Gentlemen, what exactly is going on here?" Principal Jackson asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had dealt with difficult situations before. The shorter guard tried to explain. "Sir, we were following orders to ask this woman to move because of complaints about her military uniform." Principal Jackson looked at Lisa, then at the SEALs around her, then back at the guards. "Whose orders?" The district supervisor said we needed to maintain a peaceful environment and that military displays might upset some families. The taller guard said, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. "Military displays?" Principal Jackson's voice rose slightly. "This is a parent attending her child's graduation. In what world is that a military display? He turned to Lisa. "Ma'am, I am so sorry. This is completely unacceptable. You have every right to be here, and I personally apologize for this treatment." Lisa felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Thank you, sir. I just want to watch my son graduate." Principal Jackson looked at the guards. "You two need to leave, now, and I'll be having a very serious conversation with your supervisor after this ceremony." The guards didn't argue. They had already caused enough of a scene, and facing down a principal, a veteran, and 12 Navy SEALs was more than they had signed up for. They quickly walked toward the exit, their heads down in embarrassment. The crowd erupted in another round of applause as the guards left. Principal Jackson raised his hand to quiet everyone down. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize for this disruption. Every parent here has earned the right to celebrate their child's graduation, regardless of their background or profession. Now let's focus on why we're really here, to celebrate these amazing young people who are about to receive their diplomas." The SEALs began to return to their seats, but not before each one shook Lisa's hand or gave her a hug. Chief Wilson was the last to leave. "Ma'am, it was an honor to stand with you today," he said quietly. "Your son should be proud to have a mother who serves with such dignity." "Thank you, Chief. Thank you all. I'll never forget this." As the SEALs dispersed back to their families, Lisa noticed something beautiful happening. Other parents were coming over to introduce themselves. A woman with gray hair and a warm smile approached first. "Honey, I'm Betty. My husband served in Korea. What those guards did was wrong, and I'm glad those young men stood up for you." An older gentleman with a veteran's cap came next. "Marine, I'm Army myself, but today we're all on the same team. Thank you for your service." One by one, parents who had initially seemed uncomfortable or uncertain were now coming forward with words of support. Lisa realized that it wasn't that they were against the military, they had just been confused by the guards' actions and needed someone to show them what was right. The ceremony finally began, and Lisa had never felt more welcome anywhere in her life. As the graduates filed onto the stage, she spotted Danny immediately. He was grinning from ear to ear, clearly proud of how his mother had handled herself. When Principal Jackson began his opening remarks, he did something unexpected. "Before we begin today's ceremony, I want to take a moment to recognize the sacrifices made by our military families. We have parents here today who have served our country with honor, and their children have also served by supporting their parents' dedication to protecting our freedoms. Let's give them the recognition they deserve." The entire auditorium stood up and applauded. Lisa felt tears streaming down her face as hundreds of people honored not just her, but all military families. She thought about the wives and husbands and children who wait at home, who sacrifice alongside their service members, who understand the true cost of freedom. When it was time for Danny to walk across the stage, the moment was even more perfect than Lisa had imagined. As his name was called, Daniel Rodriguez, he walked confidently to receive his diploma. But before taking it from the principal, he did something that made Lisa's heart burst with pride. He stood at attention, found his mother in the crowd, and gave her a crisp military salute. The auditorium went wild. People were cheering, clapping, and some were crying. Lisa saluted back, her own tears flowing freely. In that moment, all the deployments, all the missed moments, all the sacrifices felt worth it. After receiving his diploma, Danny pointed to his mother and mouthed, "I love you," before walking off the stage. When the ceremony ended, Danny came running through the crowd to find his mother. He wrapped her in the biggest hug she had ever received. "Mom, I am so proud of you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "The way you stood up for yourself, the way you didn't back down, that's my mom right there." "Danny, I'm sorry if I embarrassed you. I know this was supposed to be your special day." "Embarrassed?" Danny pulled back to look at her. "Mom, are you kidding? Everyone knows my mother is a hero. Today they got to see exactly what that means. The Seals and their families came over to congratulate Danny and meet the young man they had heard so much about. Chief Wilson's daughter was also a graduate, and she and Danny hit it off immediately, bonding over having military parents. "Your mom is incredible," Chief Martinez told Danny. "She handled that situation with more grace and strength than most people could manage." An hour later, as families were taking pictures and saying their goodbyes, Principal Jackson approached Lisa one more time. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I want you to know that we're implementing new policies to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. Every staff member and security guard will be trained on respecting our military families. Thank you, sir. I hope this helps other families in the future." "It will. And I want you to know, you're welcome at any school event, in any uniform, any time." As Lisa walked to her car with Danny, she reflected on the day. It had started with excitement, turned into a nightmare, and ended up being one of the most meaningful days of her life. "Mom," Danny said as they reached the parking lot, "I've always been proud to be your son. But today, I learned something new about what that really means. It means standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. It means not backing down when people try to make you feel small. It means serving something bigger than yourself." Lisa hugged her son again. "Danny, that's the best graduation gift you could have given me." As they drove home together, Lisa knew that this day would stay with both of them forever. Not just because Danny graduated, but because they both learned something important about courage, about standing up for what's right, and about the power of people coming together to support each other. The uniform she wore wasn't just fabric and ribbons. It represented values, sacrifice, and service. And today, a room full of strangers had stood up to defend those values right alongside her.